Welcome to Spiritual and Sassy, the podcast where we bleed deep soul wisdom with authentic confidence.
We're your host,
Tressa
and Myra, and together we'll explore the mystical side of life, challenge societal norms and programming, and embrace our inner power.
Whether you're on a spiritual journey or just love a little sass, this space is for you.
Let's dive in and light up the world with a little more love.
Hello. Take a sip of that water, Myra.
I know, it'll cut out the pause in editing.
Yeah, thank goodness for editing, right?
I know. How cold is it there?
It's not too bad today. It's been getting cold at night, though.
Yeah.
So you got cool mornings, cool evenings, and then, mid 60s in the day.
Yeah. Yeah, today the high was I think it was almost 80. And it's really not been totally 80 or totally that hot lately, but I'm really struggling a little bit. I look and I'm the seasonal side I look at my sweaters in my closet because I have 405,061 sweaters. I mean, look at me and I'm there was a time that we lived in a land
sweater weather
where this was all that I could wear from September until June was I could only wear sweaters. So
It was homecoming this weekend in Laramie, and it was cold. It hailed and snowed and rained. It was great.
I saw pictures of the field. I did see the pictures of the field. So Blake was like, "Oh my gosh!" I was like, "Yeah, I know." There's another world. There's a whole world again.
There's a whole world outside of North Carolina.
Yeah, I still get, I signed up to Wyoming 411 and I can't get it off my phone. So I still get text. I wake that night, or the day before the game. Oh, look, it likes that I'm still subscribed, I guess. But I woke up to seriously 30 texts, and I'm like, what the heck? And then I remember, okay, it's usually the Wyoming DOT if I have that many texts. I'm like, that means it snowed. So, there is very rare. Snowed? Yeah, that means there was some shit going down with the white wintry mix.
So funny. Yeah, thank goodness the roads weren't bad the next day, but it was chilly. Yeah.
That's cool, though. That's cool. Yeah. I don't know if I've ever been to a game where it snowed. I've been when it was cold, but I've never went to a Wyoming game that had snow.
I think I've been when I did the halftime show, we were talking about the weather a little bit, and I'm like, I've been to games where there's been snow, but I don't know if I've ever been to a game where it was raining like it was.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's weird.
First it snowed and then it rained. So great.
Well, you're like, oh, surprise.
Fantastic.
Let's just murder these teenage 20-year-olds or whatever they are on the field. Let's just freeze them out. Yeah, my very first Wyoming football game, I went and Nola was really little. She was 6 months old around that age, and it had snowed before. So the game, it didn't snow, but the bleachers, because I on the side I was on was still covered in snow. So that was okay, well that's great. I can't sit here because it's wet, But it was so cold. And some of my most favorite photos of her ever, she was wearing this bear, zip up fuzzy onesie, and she was in this carrier on Blake, just out. She was asleep. And I felt like those European countries where they put your baby outside in the cold and it's supposed to heal them or something. And I don't know, but yeah, she loved, I don't know, she was cozy and warm enough to sleep. But
that's awesome.
Yeah. So it was really cold. It was horribly cold. It wasn't just Myra says it's cold,
Yeah,
it was
Myra's
really cold. Yeah, I was in several layers. It was pretty brutal. And then when we left the game, all these students, they were sloshed and they were obsessed with her because she looked like this little bear on your chest, like an Ewok, running around, So anywho, that was my very first game and my only semi-snow game, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you never know what you're going to get in Laramie, Wyoming, so you got to be prepared for anything.
Yeah, sometimes you'll get 4 seasons in a day,
Exactly. Well, that's what it was kind of like. That morning, it was gorgeous. The parade, it couldn't have been better weather. You can kind of see it coming, and then it rained a little bit, and then, maybe 2 hours, hour and a half before game time, that storm or that hail and snow, I guess. I don't know. It just dumped. It was crazy. And then it just kept raining. So
it's wild. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I've seen it rain here in a while. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it probably will now. Now I'm going to
Yeah.
bring it. So
You're going to bring the rain and
the
no
rain, there
snow
is no
probably.
snow. Yeah, there's snow. It will. I don't know. Last year it did. We had
Yeah, it did, didn't
traumatic
it? Yeah.
hurricane and snow at the same. I was like,
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, I
I
hope
don't
you don't
even.
get a hurricane. I remember that. That was horrible.
It was horrifying. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was pretty brutal. Yeah,
Yeah.
none so far.
Yeah.
None. Yeah,
No.
none. Yeah, so I'm excited because like the leaves here are
Hmm.
just so beautiful in the way they all transition, and it's like peak leaf peepers. So even though the government's shut down, I think they made some like statement to keep the Blue Ridge Parkway open
Hmm.
and to allow those people to stay. And I believe it. Don't quote me, folks. I'm not trying to be, news facts over here, but like I'm pretty sure the reasoning behind it was because last year it was shut down for so long because of the hurricane. So like
Oh,
to get
yeah.
people and tourists and tourism back through these communities, like it's pretty vital to
Yeah.
keep that parkway open and
I
those
see.
workers. Yeah, so it makes sense to me. I mean, well, everything should be open, but it makes sense to me though why they made that specific call out because last year nobody came. So there was tons and tons of
Hmm.
revenue. They couldn't
That
come or
was
they were asked
lost.
to not
Yeah.
come.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it wasn't
Yeah.
safe. So, or the leaves were not even existent, Tressa. They were
Yes.
gone. There were no trees. They were dead. They were washed away.
They
Yeah.
were washed
There
away.
was nothing to look at. You're just like, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the fall colors. It's my favorite time of year. The leaves are so beautiful.
Yeah, I love it. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I'll stop about my random things, but I got a jacket, okay? And Blake's like, "Why did you get a jacket?" Again, because I'm looking at these sweaters and jackets that I can't wear anywhere, right? But it's like a barn jacket, and I've seen several options, and this one I'm like, I like it a lot. So anywho, put it on to try it on, and Blake's like, "You look like a Ninja Turtle when they're trying to hide to go out in public to pretend they're not a Ninja Turtle." And I'm like, I honestly feel more like a 90s rom-com, like let's mix Sleepless in Seattle or like You've Got Mail or like even Practical Magic would have been cool. But those are the vibes of it. It's like this super dad barn coat looking thing. It's really cute. You guys would love it. Tracy, you'd love it. But to Blake, I'm a Ninja Turtle hiding in public.
Well, you won't be wearing it for a while, it doesn't sound like.
I'm gonna bring it out this weekend. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'll
Okay.
sweat.
I'll sweat. I'll sweat for fashion.
I will. I'll go to Jeff's house. Jeff lives in the mountains and it's like another 20 degrees cooler up there.
There you go. Yeah.
It'll do some math. I'll cancel some temperature out or something. I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'll go sport it as I'm wearing a tank top, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, should we get into our topic for today?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, listeners, update. Life's been fun,
Update.
right? So, Tristan and I, we chat, we talk, and like try to figure out a theme or a commonality. This episode, we're going to just see where this goes. So bear with us. And, I trust that it'll all mesh together and what I need to say will be what you need to hear and what Tressa says will be what you need to hear too. So there's not like usually we kick it off with like, we're going to talk about anger or this or
Yeah.
that, but
Yeah.
there's just a lot going on. But so one of the experiences that I went through this week, we talked last week on an episode about addressing like a lot about childhood trauma, really, and about bringing up one. I was in a situation last week where I didn't even realize, I actually was blessed really with the universe revealing it specifically to me so that I could address it. Well, then just like 2 days after, I was put in a situation where nobody was telling me, that this is, hey, you got a trauma here, you've got these blocks here, you need to work on this here. I didn't get that recipe card or the map,
Yeah. Yeah.
my chakra map and like the next steps or what to do or anything. And so I was put in a situation where, and it was with another family member where I had shared some information with one family member. And it was like the telephone game, one family member said the information to another family member. And then I'm like, well, please don't share it with that family member because now let me back up. And the information I shared, the intention behind it was information like, hey, I got this message and it said this. It wasn't the intention behind me sharing that information was not to gossip out of anger, out of malice. It was just like, hey, I got this information I don't even know I don't know, and I said I don't know the answer to it. I told them to contact you, so kind of like, hey, they might contact you. Like I didn't. It was very surface level intentions here. Nothing crazy, nothing ill intent. So when the information was taken from that person to the next person, then shared with the person that I wasn't really comfortable with hearing, again, that's red flag number one, right? I want them to withhold information from a certain individual because I knew how this individual could react or what could happen, or if one person's mad, it's kind of like the domino game. One domino falls, they're all falling
Mm-hmm.
down. They're all going to fall down, I guess. I don't know. Lots of F's. And so I was telling Tressa, like, I went from sharing a piece of information to hurting, or well, I didn't specifically intend to hurt people, but that piece of information, I should say, let me reframe. I didn't hurt these people. This information ended up hurting like 4 people. And then ultimately, a vulnerable individual who cannot speak for themselves ended up being the last blow. They were the ones they had this beautiful idea and it was completely taken away from them because of feelings of adults, of older adults in their family who reacted the way that they did. And in their reaction, they chose to make this decision that ended up hurting another family member. So I was telling Tressa, when this all unfolded, I was deeply like, what the fuck? What in the fuck? I'm like, what just happened? And, it was a crazy, crazy night. I ended up staying up till like 2 a.m, which I go to bed at like 9:30, 10, folks. Like, I don't stay awake. I'm a morning productive person. Occasionally a night owl, but no, I get in the bed and I veg out and I'm gone. Well, in this situation, I'm up until 2 a.m., which is another red flag. Why am I awake? Like, why am I spinning? I was going out of like, it started feeling like this, and I'm like, what in the fuck is happening? And as I was having the conversation, and I called my mom, to just kind of rehash it out, which again, when you're rehashing it out, you're keeping it alive. So I'm like, okay, another red flag. Like, I don't need to be calling another individual about this shit, right? But I called my mom just to have a sounding board. She's understands and she's been a part of the situation and she understands these people and the context and what's going on. And this was a point where I'm like, okay. And as I started talking, I was using language like, some of the language I used was like, I'm in the crossfires of this again. Why is this happening to me? And then I started saying things like, I feel like a little girl again. And so as I started using that kind of language, it really became clear to me, like, okay, I'm deeply triggered by this. I'm triggered by these people. I'm triggered by the situation. I'm triggered by what's happening to me. You know, I'm like, what is going on? But I finally went to bed, and the next day I woke up and I'm like, okay, well, it's happening to me, but I don't need to be in that state either. I'm not in the victim state. It's not happening to me, it's happening for me. So what do I need to learn from this? So I had just went through this whole thing, where I did the work, we had the whole episode about it, and I'm like, okay, well, here I am again. And this is a situation that has openly played in my life a lot, like a lot, comes up a lot. And I have never worked through it, I've never addressed it. I've like, why is it, you say, why is this happening to me again? Well, okay, well, I'm not doing anything about it. So in these moments, I recognize, okay, well, one, like I feel unsafe. So something's off in my root chakra. Two, I feel misunderstood. I don't feel like I'm being heard. So again, that could even be in my throat. Being misunderstood could even be, like my worth is tied to this.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Or their reactions. It's
Next.
okay. You're releasing for me. I'm just kidding.
Apparently.
Yeah, like, woo.
My throat.
Yeah, so even too, like, I could feel in my sacral, I felt like my words valued my worth, like, what is going on here? And then in my heart, I didn't feel loved. Like, these are my family members, and there was a lot of emotion, and especially since the emotion was resurfacing and it really hurt me, I'm thinking, okay, that's in my heart. Like, there's things here. So, it was all over, right? Like, boom, 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 boom. And so I started bottom up and addressing it. I had to do the work. I'm sitting in here like, fuck, and my children, was joking with Tressa, they're going to be like, yeah, remember that time mom's like walking around with candles and shit, like just staring at a flame, like I was doing everything, I was like, this is some deep ass shit. So I need to really work through this. But I was telling Tressa, I write. And so as I was writing, I could really put it into words. Why am I feeling these emotions? What is going on with this little girl? Like, what is happening with her? What's happening with me? I have an adult voice now. How can I help support her? And so I did all the things, but I'll stop there so that I'm not in a monologue. Like,
I know you're good.
Yeah, so I'll stop there.
So, a couple of things I was writing notes as I was releasing energy. That was wild. I was like, okay, but it's interesting because at the beginning you were like, why is this happening to me? And then you were able to switch your dialogue to why is this happening for me? And it seems like once you were able to do that, then your body can help you recognize like what areas of the body, and you're associating it to your chakras, right? Which is great. Are you feeling that you need to still release? It's like that next layer that has to be revealed, right? And I think, well, I've seen this with myself and when I work with clients. When you start, it's like you start to pull the yarn, right? You start to unravel the yarn. And once you start, it's a lot easier, right? The universe will show you more and more and more. Right? It gives you situations to gift you, even when it's uncomfortable, and it always is.
Yeah.
To show you the shadows you need to work on. So I'm not shocked that you're telling me that this has happened in kind of the same theme, if you will, as what we talked about on the last episode, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it was like, I was like, ha, 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 ha. I'm like,
Yeah.
My root chakra, the root of it all, right? From before. And it was a very similar theme is what happened of myself. And it's just rising and it's getting easier. I mean, not easier to do it. I mean, you got to feel and all those fun things, but it's getting easier for me to recognize. Like I knew it instantly. I'm like, oh yeah, this is what's happening. Like I'm in a mirror of what the fuck I need to be working on. And so, that to me really showed me that, like I doing the work for that open up the pathways of, I'm not responsible. And the language I started using and telling myself, especially in these meditations, is doing the work. I'm using the term meditation very vaguely, like in ceremony through each situation that I worked through in each level and chakra and as I went up. But using language, like again, it brought up the worthiness. Like I tied the opinions of my family to my worthiness. I was tying, like, okay, I'm responsible for their emotions. I'm not responsible for their emotions. I'm not responsible for how these people, these 4 adults acted and reacted and what they chose to do after. Like that's not my responsibility. And, another one that came up for me that I really liked was the chaos of my family is not my burden for me to carry. And, I think about that a lot where, you have family dynamics, and my family is a very chatty family, but they talk a lot, but are they really expressing themselves or their authenticity? Or are they saying what they really want to say or need to say? Or what is the authenticity of the words coming out of their mouth to others? And what's the intention too, because it could be of malice or intent or anger or hurt or pain or whatever. So there's a lot of that happening. And, that one was really big for me because of the way I felt as a youth. I needed to connect by gossiping to these adults, to feel supported, to feel heard. And then here I am where I don't participate in that activity anymore. And especially with my family and especially with adults. And I'm not perfect, right? These are things that I've had to work on and you got to catch, it's easy to be like, blah, blah, blah. You have to catch yourself and you got to reframe or rework it or whatever you need to do. And so to me, that is an entanglement. Like if you think of like the yarn ball, right? Or like I always think of like a rubber band ball. I don't know. That always comes up in my mind. That's like my family dynamics, especially. It's very tangled and, and other people probably feel the same way, right? But it's not my burden to carry that chaos. Like I don't need to be with it. I don't need to act on it. I don't need to sit in it. I don't need to dwell on it. I don't need to worry about it. It's no longer what I need to be associated with. And, I'm wearing blue topaz today and like that is very it's associated with communication in the throat. My zodiac sign's Gemini, communication, throat. I'm obviously doing a damn podcast. You know what I mean? Like communication, throat. And so for me, this is everything. This is everything for me. My voice is my power. My voice is my song. It's the way that I'm meant to share, I'm meant to express, I'm meant to communicate, I'm meant to connect. I'm a vessel to connect. I believe these things. And so when I use my voice and then it's misunderstood, that is something that deeply needed to be worked on for me, because I love this one that came up too. It's like it's like my truth, or their story isn't my truth. So what they think and they curate and they spin and they take around and they go over and start reacting in their web of shit isn't my truth. And and I don't need to feel like I'm not misunderstood. Like they misunderstand me, but like not it's not coming to me like prettily, like in a pretty package. But I don't need to worry about how they understand me, pretty much. Like, that is not associated to my being, of the way that they feel about me or the way they think they know me, and I used to be so worried about that. Like, what am I reflecting to them and how am I saying and speaking and talking? So anyways, I really love that one about it. Like, my truth, or their story's not my truth. So their version of whatever the fuck isn't me.
Yeah, ultimately you're saying like, well, I say this to my clients, other people's opinions of you are not, it's not your business.
Yeah.
Because who cares? Like, if you know who you are, you're acting in your authenticity, you're coming at it through the lens of love. And even if you're not, oh well, like that's when people start to worry about what other people are thinking of them. That's where authenticity suffers, because then they either go into a passivity, right, and make themselves smaller, or sometimes we go into aggression, to go into the ego. So ultimately, that's what you're saying. You said something interesting about when you were talking about your heart chakra and love, and like, you didn't feel love, and these people are your family. Mm-hmm. And it's so interesting because we have these perceptions of labels. We've talked about this before, that just because they're my family, they should love me. And we have an expectation of what that love looks like. But we fail to remember that everybody is in human form, and they're doing the best they can with what they have.
For sure.
And when people are not looking at themselves, not going inward, right, and being honest with who they are and looking at their own traumas, their own truths, they have no ability to love somebody else fully, because they don't love themselves fully. And so you get these situations that you've got to deal with, right? And it's funny, I was just thinking, I had lunch with a friend of mine last week, and I could look it up, but she was playing some music, and I can't remember the artist's name. I could try to find it, but he had written a song about like basically releasing anyone that doesn't serve him with love. Even it came from, his mother said, even if it's me, like, even if it's me, like, serve, if I'm not serving you in love, don't keep me around.
Yeah.
And it was really profound. And I was like, wow, I mean, that is love right there. Is saying, if I'm not serving you, right, and I'm not bringing out the best in you, like, it's okay. Like, maybe we're just not at the vibrational space we need to be to, bring out the best in each other.
Yeah.
But we're so accustomed to hanging on with expectations and, if you do this, compromise and change, and
or conditions. It's conditional.
Conditions.
It's
yes,
not
it's
actually
conditional.
unconditional.
Yeah. Yeah. So I hear what you're saying. And I wouldn't be, I mean, I hope it'll be interesting to see what the universe serves you this week.
Oh, I'm like, well, it's already been even better, bro. So this goes in my next section. So that was like Sunday, right? And then Monday, I guess the universe is teaching me flow, I guess, and love and compassion. I joked and told Tressa, I feel like Mother Teresa. I'm taking care of the homeless, the weary, the meek, the dying, the sick. Like, it got really wild. Yeah. So then on the other half of my family, I had a situation where an individual, so this individual had a plan, right? They had this mastermind plan. They were leaving their children in the care of their daughter, and they were like, this is going to work. I've got this plan. This is perfect. Well, then they exit stage left, and their daughter had a medical episode, and that medical episode was another domino of life. that it started falling into other people's lives, and aspects of routine or whatever, like every time's a construct, right? So like, I'm thinking this individual calls me. So here, from what I needed to learn from this situation over here is this individual calls me, and in that moment, it felt like an interruption. It felt like an inconvenience. It felt very like WTF, are you sure? And so did I react the best in the moment? Not totally. Now, it wasn't the worst. I can say that. It was not the worst. But was it a little sharper than it probably should have been? Absolutely. And and I've addressed that since then, because that's self-awareness and then reflection. And it's, if they didn't want to forgive me for that, that's okay too. Like, that's not for me to worry about. But I needed to recognize and then correct. And then now I know now I know I've learned something that I need to, use later. But flow is one of those things where, like, we talk about the flow of life, but then when we get mishaps in our own routines, like, how can you be in flow if your mishap in your routine or your structure or your whatever throws you off, right? So that just, it was a lesson in that. I ended up having to take care of these other two children now because of the sister being unable to do that. So then I had to welcome lots of energy in my home, and I really struggle with that. I'm not gonna lie, like, that's a challenge for me. I like my little nook of family, and I had to bring in other individuals, and I love these people too. So, it's not that I don't love them. It's not that I don't want to take care of them. But, I thought to myself, well, how I react to them too, like, I don't want anyone to ever feel like a burden or an inconvenience or a disruption. So I thought to myself, what I do next is going to set up the way other people will react or how they will react themselves. They're learning behaviors too, right? I'm setting up, this is where those generational lines start flowing, right? Like, this is one of those pivotal moments. Like, I'm in a moment that I could either really fuck some people up or some shit up for other generations or whatever. I could go crazy. I could do, I could do anything in this moment. Or I could really be like, okay, if I'm practicing what I'm preaching or saying, right? How am I going to show up in this moment? What am I going to do in this moment? What is the best way that I can show up for myself first, right? I have to honor myself, but how can I also show up for these individuals that are vulnerable parties that need a caregiver? They need this kind of person or they need the stability in this moment. They need safety in this moment. They need security, right? They need these certain aspects, right? When you think about the hierarchy of needs, they need all those things going on right now. And so I made the choice, because it's a choice, right? I made the choice to react of love and compassion and support. So I've been fun aunt, right? Living my best life. And so like, that's been fun. And, that's a lesson I needed to learn this week for me too. Like, flow, welcoming the people, like, and then also I think it was also a test. The universe is like, okay, well, you say these things. Now, what are you going to do in these moments? How are you going to show up now? Like, like, what are you going to do? And so I felt like, okay, this is the way I could present myself. And it's not I'm not putting on a production or a false, but it was through authenticity. So it's been a fun week on that end, right? Sleepovers, projectors, big comfy beds in the middle of the living room. It's been a party, popcorn, late nights, a little bit of Benadryl. I'm just kidding. And some NyQuil. And, like, lots of love, laughter, homework, music, playing games, you know what I mean? It's been well. It's been really well. But then revisiting the other individual in this situation, they continued to have these episodes. And so they chose to go seek medical attention. And when they went, they really didn't get the answers they thought they were going to get, pretty much is what I'm going to say. Because I'm not going to say that they didn't get info or they didn't get a diagnosis, because that's not true, but they didn't get what I think they were seeking. Like, they wanted something to be wrong and they didn't get that validation. And I do know that they went, did the thing, and then after that they continued to sit in the situation. So, okay, like, I'm, when you think about, not that I don't believe things are wrong with people, I believe in, like I said, compassion. This is something I needed to learn this week. Am I going to have compassion for this individual? Which I do. And do I love and do I believe? And then how do they need me to show up for them? Here's another pivotal moment. I reacted not great the first time, right? I didn't show up the best. And so then now I have a moment to say, okay, what am I going to do in these steps? So, there's belief, support, and love. But I also really felt in this moment there needed to be those hard conversations. Again, what is my intention? What is my drive to have these type of conversations with this individual? Is it to hurt them? Is it to cause more pain? Is it because I'm upset? Is it because I'm angry? Is it because, where am I coming at with all this, right? And so, we were able to have conversations around their emotional baggage. I'm gonna call it baggage. I mean, it's what it is. Emotional baggage, their traumas, their big T's, their little T's. They have several incidents, and daily they bring up the little T's. Like every day a new incident is revealed, where they're holding on. Like we talked about in the last episode, if you can play shit from front to back like it was yesterday, there's obviously going to be something hanging on with it, right? Or there's going to be a little bit of a layer to that. And this individual can do that. They remember everything like lockstep. Like it's boom, boom, here's what's going, this is what happened when I was 5, 6, 3, 2, like,
wow. Yeah.
Last week or last year or 2 years ago, 4 years ago, like it's a lot. So, some of the things we addressed is the medical, what we think the medical condition's causing. And then in this situation, they were passing out. They were having elevated heart rate, a lot of anxiety. They had a lot of fear from that event. They were afraid to participate in driving or afraid to participate in other activities. They didn't feel comfortable. And so in this moment with this individual, I thought about like, how can I position myself, and so I asked the questions. It's not, you never go anywhere, or like, you aren't sick. I said, okay, what is the difference between this time and this episode medically than the last time? Why do you feel so in your head or worried? Because, they use language like in their head, like they're worried. So like I'm repeating it back. Why are you feeling these things that you're saying so much right now versus before? And asking these questions and having them like really think and answer. And so some really great conversations I feel like have happened. Again, I can say a million things, but if this individual chooses to not take that information and do anything with it, that's not on me. It's not my responsibility. You get to a point where, I don't like the word I don't care, because that's easy to say and easy to kind of like throw around. It's not that I don't care, but I'm at a place where I've done what I can do and I've said what I can say, but it's no longer in my court. I can just send love. I can't do anything else physically, mentally, emotionally to change. You can't change somebody, right? So I expressed and said what I need to say. In these moments, some of the things that came up were avoidant behaviors. And I love what you said there, Tressa, too, because a lot of this comes from their parents, so their parental lines. So issues with the mother, issues with the father, issues ancestrally through those lines too, issues, I don't even know if issues is the right word, but there's challenges or situations.
Yeah.
Through each of these lines, these parties, these people. And it's a big, big web, like a very massive rubber band ball in their body right now. And, we did go to an appointment today and followed up. And the point I'm getting to here is the doctor gave us an answer. Okay, we got an answer this time. And the answer was their vagus nerve. And I'm like, I'm not laughing. I'm not like, oh, I told you so. I didn't say that. But I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm right. I'm like, I've been saying this. It's emotional. Like, I know what it is. But, again, I'm not right. And for me to be going around dancing and screaming, I'm right. That's my ego, right? That's me being pompous. But that's neither here nor there. So, okay. And then the recommendation was to drink an X amount of liters of water and add salt. And I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of what I thought. I thought that would be it. And I've mentioned that a couple of times, you got to replenish. But I'm grateful for this doctor, though, because that's their first recommendation. It wasn't the medication. So
thank you that's pretty impressive.
Person. Yeah, thank you to this lady. Because I do believe, like, we don't need to jump to that conclusion just yet. Right? So, anywho, so the vagus nerve. This vagus nerve is like it's like the connecting point in the body to regulate everything. Your heart, your emotions, or your heart if you're in distress. There's a million things. And, we got rolling in the episode. I could have looked them up, but I didn't look up all the things it impacts. But ultimately, it's your nervous system. And right now, I've seen it's everywhere. This term is everywhere. I believe in this. I believe that this is a real thing and that you can probably massage it and help it. And there are recommendations on how to work through it and to heal it. And there's all these things around it. And I'm not saying I don't disagree or don't believe it, but I feel like from the medical perspective, this is a diagnosis very similar to at the time where fibromyalgia was on the rise, like when they couldn't think of something to tell you, they said like fibromyalgia, you know? And I'm not discrediting that. So I just, if you're out there with fibromyalgia, I hope, you know, you work through what you need to work through. I send love all, you know, whatever. There is this thing though, but to me, that's just a mask for calling on the vagus nerve. And it's just a mask of the underlying traumas, challenges, suppressed emotions, the emotional side of her well-being, her mental health, her emotional health, her spiritual health, her soul health, for gosh sakes. Like, this is really what needs to be focused on. And then once those things are really focused on, the manifestations of the physical ailments will not be there. You know, that those things won't exist anymore. You know, when I think about fainting, that's avoiding a situation, right? Again, avoidant behavior. When you faint and you pass out, you can, like, energetically, what is that? You're exiting. You can just, you don't have to deal with it. They're not coping with their emotions. They're not coping with their situations. So this was the other half of my week. This was the other thing that was shown from the universe.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I personally believe that when you think about the word dis-ease, there's dis-ease within the body. And so I'm not saying medical diagnoses happen all the time, and they're true, right? But it's the root problem is your body is out of balance at the energetic level. And that is like with this individual you're talking about, you know, not looking and expressing and feeling her emotion around her childhood and her trauma. But here's the rub. Like, I fully believe before you come to incarnate as a human, you make a plan with what I call your council, right? Your soul makes a plan with the council. What do I need to experience in this incarnation that helps my soul's growth? And so that means that she picked these parents. She picked them. This is not accident. Nothing is accidental. And so what she's failing to do at this point is start to ask the question of, what is this teaching me? How is this serving me? What do I need to feel, right? And then you add the law of karma, right? Which is really the most profound one we have. Everything has to balance, right? So what aspects of this is her own karma that she's not yet willing to work through, willing to see, willing to express? And until she does that, these type of things will continue to be in her life. And I think people do it for lifetimes. You know, it may never be resolved in this lifetime. And you're just sitting there watching this individual, and they're probably going to have a pretty sad, I guess, or turbulent, or, you know, life ahead of them until they make those decisions. You know, I have this written down. I work with clients. I call it loving with wisdom. And you said something about you have given your help. You've given your opinion. You've shared your story. And loving with wisdom means there comes a point where you've given enough of you and you can't give any more. You know, you still love this individual. You're still there. But to continue to express energy into it, it's just not serving. Sometimes it doesn't serve us anymore, right? Because you got to love yourself too. You know, I've had a situation similar to this with somebody in my life who I love very much. They struggle with anger and depression, and their dialogue is, why is this always happening to me? This person doesn't like me. This person did that. They have a lot of expectations on how other people perform in their life, right? And I'm like, this will not, I said to this person, like, I think you really should probably get some help, whatever that looks like for you, right? Whether that's metaphysical, psychology, whatever, you know? And they haven't reached out, and they didn't seem like they wanted to. And I'm like, well, I mean, then this will be your existence, you know? But going back to loving with wisdom, I'm going to make the choice to not allow my joy to be taken by you. Like, that's, you know, I'm not going to let you take my joy away all of the time with your own pain.
Yeah.
And it's hard because you love people and you want to see them joyful.
Yeah.
But they also have to dig in and divine timing in their own karma. And it's always up to the individual, right? And so, you know, you have to have those boundaries even for yourself, even with like I was talking about with this song where he was talking about, even if it's my own mother,
Yeah.
I mean, that's powerful. And most of
I
us are
agree.
so there's a lot of codependent
Dependency.
energies,
Yeah.
especially in family dynamics, right? Where we just can't separate those. And when I work with energy, I see patterns, and like when I work with clients, a lot of times I'll see like cross patterns like this, things that it's like a big web. And and it's rare when they start to work on things. Well, it's not rare. Well, it kind of is. Even when they start to work on things, I tell them when things are balanced, especially for two adults, two adult relationships, the energy lines are parallel. They're never crossed.
Yeah.
They're never crossed. They're parallel with each other because the parallel energies are an expression of expansive energy, and it's an expression of allowing the individualism to each person through love, but never condemnation or you have to do this or that, right? That's all this energy.
Yeah.
And so it's a tough one for humans, but I think more and more people are looking for it because there's a lot of pressure in the world right now, and that contrast is there for a reason. You'll either vibrationally come up or you'll vibrationally transition to something that serves you better.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that I think about it in my own life too, in my the personal relationships that I have, and those preconditioned labels and commitments. And, I hear language throughout my family too, like, well, that's my daughter, or that's my father, or that's my son, or that's my cat, or that's my dog. I don't, whatever, or my aunt or my uncle or whatever, Jim Bobo. Or like one of the ones I heard a lot this weekend with the original situation was that's their brother, or like they should love their brother. And I said, what does that matter? Like that, I mean, I was like, well, I can name you a few people that are siblings that I don't think talk to each other, and you're not so concerned with that. Like, what does it matter? I don't think that's a weird one to throw out. And then again today I heard similar language, like that's my mother, that's my father, that's my daughter, that's my, like it was just over and over and over. Every one of the people involved said those exact words. And I think it's so interesting because I think about the way that they're all so bound to that it's blinding them to really have those deep rooted conversations that are truly authentic and truly of love and support. They say they love, they say they support, but then they're like, well, I've done this and I've done that, and I don't know why they don't talk to me, or I don't do this, or I don't do that. Like, these behaviors are so tied to outcomes for every one of them. And I feel like throwing the label in, like it's like a little bit of seasoning to the mix. When you throw that in, you're labeling in, or you're adding in expectations automatically when you start saying, like, so it'll never flow natural. It's never going to resolve because you can't even get rid of that familial piece of the expectation and the binding to that situation.
No, I mean, just think of the words they used. They put condition on it in the moment they said it. So they said things like, well, I do this or I do that for them, and I don't know why they don't talk. That's conditional. And that's, if you're giving a gift, right?
Yeah.
If you give a gift because you want to give the gift to the individual, that's one thing. But if you give the gift because you expect something back, like I gave so-and-so a birthday gift and they never remember my birthday, that's conditional.
Yeah.
And we run on, because of the programming of society and most of our parents and all of the things happening, most people run on that belief structure.
Yeah.
Right? But they're unaware.
Yeah.
It goes back to that awareness, right? It goes back to, I was working with a client the other night with coaching, and it was their first session. And I said, you may never come back because I will call you out on your stuff. That's what you're paying me to do. And if you can't look at yourself and be honest with who you are, right? You put yourself in these situations. You want to go into victim mode. This happened to me, but something in you made those choices, and you don't want to look at those. And until you want to do that, there will be no change.
Yeah.
You can come to me superficially, but that's not going to work, So I think people need to really think about when they're doing something am I putting a condition on it? Sometimes not even understanding that they are. But the words that your family's using, 100%.
Conditional.
Yeah, conditional.
Right out the gate. Yeah.
Right out the gate.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's all, folks. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's all we got this week, people.
Hopefully next week it's like some other topic that's not involving my situations at universe.
No, I think this is so good because I think that's part of the beauty of what we do is we let our lives kind of guide us into what we speak, and I trust that the right ears hear it, right? That's what we're here to do. So, yeah. So until next time, keep your vibrations way high.
And stay sassy.